Mayor Allen, it is 5 o'clock. You may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you, Clerk. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Ma and Councillor Moore, that the special meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of April 26, 2021 come to order at 5 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Due to COVID, Council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, we are streaming this live over Zoom, and you can watch this live at the Township website by looking at the Township website, www.springwater.ca. You can listen to it by phone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the ID 845-9785-1821#. And if you're unable to watch the live stream, you can view the meeting at your convenience by watching the video on the Township's YouTube channel accessible through the website. Council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interests today? Seeing none, I call upon Mr. Chris Lockhart of Enterprise Fleet Management to provide Council with a fleet management proposal follow-up discussion. But before we start, I see CAO Schmidt wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to members of council. Before I pass things over to Mr. Lockhart to present his analysis and synopsis for the township, I just wanted to highlight kind of what we're here tonight to review and also to consider. So tonight is a fleet management program that's being offered through Enterprise, but it's not just about the financial perspective, if you will. So definitely there's a financial benefit to the township, and Mr. Lockhart will walk you through what those benefits are. But more importantly is the health and safety of our workers. And so when you think about newer fleets and upgrades to a fleet and safety protocols as well as fuel efficiency and such, it's those things too that council needs to take into consideration as they look at this program. So again, financial is one piece of the puzzle, but also the health and safety of our staff and the equipment that staff is responsible for needs to be taken into consideration. So with that, I'll pass things over to Mr. Lockhart.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. Thank you again for having Camila and I back this Monday. Really excited to share with you the results in the analysis that we both put together for your fleet at the Township of Springwater. I'll quickly share my screen. Not too sure if you can see my screen okay. I know we met a couple of weeks ago, and really the purpose of our last meeting was to provide a high-level synopsis of the services that we provide municipalities. Just as a quick refresher, again, we are a division of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And on our fleet side of the business, we only work with private and public sector entities. We work with about 1,600 different municipalities all over North America, whether it's in Canada or the US, organizations that have anywhere from 25 to 75 vehicles in their fleet. That's really our niche. And essentially what we do is we help folks that have this particular fleet size just leverage the tools and resources of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, the world's largest buyer and seller. We buy about 1 million vehicles every given year, and we manage about 2.3 million vehicles globally. So we just provide the infrastructure and resources for what we have to help municipalities in that 30 to 60 vehicle range. At the end of the day, help them operate a fleet more cost effectively and to be in newer vehicles for the same, if not more cost effective than how they're currently spending today. On the fleet side of the business here in Ontario, we're working with a lot of folks that have a very similar fleet size to the Township of Springwater, folks like the Municipality of Clearview, Municipality of Meaford, Town of Lincoln, entities that have that 40 vehicle range, and we're accomplishing a lot for them. And I know at the end of the last meeting, Mayor Allen, you asked us, can we analyze your vehicles? Where are you at today? What efficiencies can we generate? And what does this program look like long-term sustainably? And, I've been really fortunate to be able to work with, CAO Jeff Schmidt, Director of Finance, Public Works, Facilities, Operations, to really put together a proposal for what this would look like that's going to accomplish a lot, not only financially, but like Jeff mentioned, create a sustainable plan moving forward that helps you be in newer, safer vehicles long term. And that's really the services that we provide in conjunction with LAS is the cooperative group buying program. Just to kind of start off as a snapshot of your fleet, today you have about 64 vehicles in your fleet. We looked at vehicles that are in that kind of F550 dump body and down. That would be a vehicle, if you can see my screen here when I flick over to the next tab, a service or a dump body that's got a salter or a sander, kind of like an F550, SF650 and down. Pickup trucks, SUVs, cars and sedans, everything in between. Out of those vehicles that we analyzed, you've got 37 of the 64 vehicles in our analysis today. And what we found is how you're currently operating your fleet is very similar to like every municipality out there. What we found is with the budgets you have in place, a lot of your initiatives are more focused on heavy duty equipment replacements. And we found that you're holding on to your light duty vehicles a lot longer than you necessarily need to. And what we found is the length of time, really the theme that we get from a lot of the municipalities that we're working with is the length of time that you hold on to your vehicles really impacts everything moving forward in terms of your overall capital and operating expenses. So out of those 37 vehicles that we analyzed, 24% are over that 10 years or older. The average age of those 37 vehicles is 7.8 years. So they're already 8 years old. And based on those 37 vehicles that you analyzed, today you're acquiring over the next 10 years, 3 vehicles a year. So from the time you bring a vehicle into your fleet to the time it leaves your fleet, you're about just over a 12-year life cycle for this vehicle to enter and leave your fleet. And with Enterprise, managing 2 million vehicles for ourselves, we know that vehicles in the later stages of its life will have higher maintenance expenses. It's not a brand new engine, so you have less fuel efficiency than what a brand new engine incurs, and you're just more susceptible to volatility and risk that a new vehicle may not necessarily have. And an older vehicle will just be less productive than a newer vehicle. One thing that we wanted to look at is how can we increase the productivity and the safety of your vehicles today. And even just looking at the safety of your vehicles, I know Jeff touched on that. Today, 4 vehicles out of your 37 vehicles do not have anti-lock braking systems in place today. 9 of these 37 do not have electronic stability control. This is the second most biggest feature since the invention of the seatbelt from a safety standpoint. 78% of your fleet, so 29 of these 37 vehicles do not have a backup camera on them. And I know you may be just thinking that, this is a nice widget, if you will, to have. Statistics have proven that with these new technological capabilities that newer vehicles are coming out with, it reduces your impact on insurance and actual claims that could happen through damages just from these technological safety capabilities that newer vehicles are coming out with. So really the whole premise of our program and the services that we provide our clients is to help them determine when is the most optimum time to get out of a vehicle based on what they use and how they use it. And it's going to be very different for a car versus a pickup truck versus that F550 with the hydraulic dump on the back. They're very different. And over the last couple of weeks, we were excited to share what that looked like for the Township of Springwater. And it's very different. So what our program accomplishes is we're actually able to significantly reduce the amount of time that you hold on to a vehicle for from about 12 to 12.5 years on average to 2 to 5 years, depending on the type, utilization, and equipment required for that vehicle. Some vehicles like pickup trucks, light duty, we're able to cycle every 1 or 2 years. The F550s that I chatted about, those are a different application. It's a longer hold. We're able to cycle those at that kind of 5-year mark. So drastically shrink the length of time you hold onto your vehicles for. What we know, because this is all we do day in and day out for ourselves, and we study fleet management, we study total cost of ownership. We know that the costs to run a vehicle in the first 1 to 5 years are very predictable. We know what we're buying them for. We know what the maintenance schedules are from the manufacturer, whether it's both preventative maintenance and unscheduled. It's very predictable. And we do know that in the later stages of its life, whether it's transmissions and engines, there's a lot of volatility and things that we're not too sure about or when those things can happen. So if we're able to be predictable and predict and know exactly how much it costs to operate vehicles in the first 1 to 5 years of its life, we could manage this proactively to help you drive down your overall costs. I spoke in person to the municipality of Meaford in front of the mayor, Barb Klumpus, and councillors. They moved forward with our program, and I spoke with the mayor after our meeting. And not only was she excited to share the financial impacts of our program, but to know that they can stabilize their budget year in and year out and also be in safer vehicles than what they're currently operating today. That in alone was a big win for the municipality of Meaford. And essentially what we do is we help our folks leverage the buying power that you have today to your advantage, because you've got the best buy possible, whether it's a pencil or a piece of paper or a pickup truck. You're a municipality and a government buying power. So how can you use that buying power to your advantage? So basically what we do is if you can buy it so well, and we know that we're going to be able to sell it at 3 or 4 years for almost the same amount of money that you bought it for, we can drastically offset the equity when we sell this vehicle at years 2, 3, or 4, and use that equity to fund future replacements. So your capital expense is as little as could ever be because you're generating that revenue on the back end to fund future replacements, and your operating expenses are as little as it could ever be because you're getting out of that vehicle before any brakes and tires are really required on that unit. So just in the first year alone, our recommendation to the Township of Springwater, and still being within what your capital allotted budget is, today you've got about $205,000 in the capital budget to replace 4 vehicles. Our recommendation is we're actually able to get into 19 vehicles under budget, and out of that 19 vehicles, when we sell those 19 vehicles for you conservatively, we're going to be able to generate over $131,000 in revenue back to the township that you necessarily wouldn't be able to capitalize today because you hold on to them for about that 12-year mark. So the whole premise of our program is to help our folks generate revenue on the back end to help offset costs or fund future replacements that really just drives down your costs moving forward and keeps you in a newer fleet for less. We're going to significantly reduce your maintenance costs. Today, you're holding onto vehicles 12 years. You may have transmission repairs. By getting out of vehicles, especially on the light duty, call it the half-ton pickup truck segment, every 45,000 kilometers, we're drastically able to reduce your maintenance costs. And again, capitalize on the newer technologies, whether it's from the CAFE regulations and the OEMs coming out with more fuel efficient vehicles year in and year out to reduce your operating expenses, both in maintenance and fuel. And then the last but not least is how do you fund this in a way that helps the township do more with less? Is by utilizing Enterprise's open-ended lease structure. This is just a fancy way of saying it's a municipal finance down to a book balance that allows you to deploy your capital and spread your money over more vehicles to get to that sweet spot that we analyze independently for each vehicle class. And the results are impressive. And it's the numbers that really speak to itself. Over 10 years, by buying and selling at the right time frame and having Enterprise as a team to work with your operations, public works, parks, to essentially help be a bolt-on fleet department, if you will, you're looking at close to $750,000 over a 10-year sustainable plan on our program. And through these, the synopsises in pages 2 through 8 is really just the analytics package and the backup for what we've done to help generate these results. And what we did is we looked at what type of vehicles should we be getting into. Is it a Ford? Is it a Ram? Is it a GMC? We pick the right tool for the job that produces the lowest total cost. We then run an analysis to determine how long should you hold on to each vehicle for. And then we literally just plot out, if you're today to run one vehicle 12 years paying cash, what would that look like buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling on enterprise? And what would that sustainable plan look like over a 10-year platform? And the savings are close to $781,000. Does that make sense so far? Does anyone have any questions?
Well, it seems too good to be true, because when you're replacing vehicles and you're driving the most current vehicles by 1 to 3 years, it seems intuitive that it's going to cost you more to do that. Now, you talk about cash savings, and I'm interested in, and you've got on your analysis on page, I guess it's 3, you've got your lease expense going from 198,000 to 344,500. And so I'd be interested in the relationship of expense savings versus cash savings.
Which slide, sorry?
3. It says 3 on the lower right is where you do your analysis of fleet mix, fleet cost, and annual. So you've got the leasing costs going from 198 up to 344,500. Then you've got your net cash. How is net cash calculated on this schedule to get to that 781,000?
Yeah. So just to start off, all of the numbers in that graph is a derivative of the assumptions above the green line. 37 vehicles, length of hold, maintenance, all those numbers play into how we got those numbers. So the yellow line is really a average annual expense for how much it would typically cost the township of Springwater to operate 37 vehicles on an annual basis. So starting on the left-hand side today, you've got 37 vehicles in your fleet. Okay. Annual need, you're buying about 3 vehicles every given year. So you're not leasing anything. All your vehicles are bought outright. So you still own 37 vehicles. You lease 0. Purchase price 124,821. That's about 50, not even 50 grand, 40 grand per vehicle on average. I know we're working with Jazz, the director of finance. Right now, you've budgeted 29 vehicles over the next 10 years. That's about a $52,000 purchase price per truck. We've budgeted less than that. So it's about a $300,000 difference right off the hop over 10 years compared to what we were looking at. But on average, over 3 years, you're about 124 grand to buy 3 trucks. When you bring 3 vehicles into fleet, you're selling 3 vehicles out of the fleet. If you get about $2,000 on the back end times 3 vehicles, you're bringing in $6,000 back into play. The maintenance cost, that 105,022, that's just the sum of the 236.54 or 17 cents a kilometer times your average mileage pattern, 16,000 kilometers a year, times the number of vehicles in fleet. Fuel, this is built on your, again, the current pump price. We factored in $1 per liter times the liters per 100 and the amount of kilometers driven to get you about 125,097. When you tally up all of those costs, on average, you're about $348,000 in acquisition, maintenance, and fuel to operate 37 vehicles on any given year. So for us, if we were to add up in years 2, where you see the fleet budget at 205,095, If we added up all of those costs minus your 348, 940 times 10, that's what's going to get you to the difference, the $781,000.
Okay, Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lockhart, while you're on that same slide, down the bottom left-hand corner, it says current fleet equity analysis. The way I read that, in 2021, you are suggesting we buy 19 vehicles. That's going to cost us $131,707. I don't think we can buy 19 vehicles for that, can we?
Nope. So this here is the equity that you're going to be getting on the back end when we sell these 19 vehicles for you. So if we're going to bring in $781,000 in savings over a 10-year time frame, the total over those 5 years, the $378,000, that's the current equity that you would get from your current fleet today by selling faster than you normally would.
But the way I interpret this is that if we're buying 19 vehicles, are we not going to be spending a lot more, like $781,000 versus $131,000?
Nope, $131,000 is what we're going to be selling these 19 vehicles of yours today. So what I can do is I can show you how we got to these numbers. If I scroll down to the appendices, this is where all the information comes from, if you can still see my screen. Okay, so I'll go to the very bottom and I'll zoom in. So this here is the pricing for the 19 vehicles that we're currently bringing into fleet. Starting on the top left, working our way forward, we've got some mid-sized vehicles, 3/4 ton trucks, 1/2 ton trucks, and some service and dump bodies. You've got 5 of a certain vehicle class, you've got 1 of a certain vehicle class, but there's 19 vehicles here. So including the lease costs, the monthly payment of these vehicles, all of the costs associated with working with us, and maintenance, the top line item, it costs you $198,412 to run 19 vehicles on our program, including the lease costs and maintenance. Does that make sense so far?
No, I have to admit it really doesn't. And I guess my bottom line is, why would we want to enter into a contract and use your services instead of just going to the dealership, instead of buying a vehicle lease and just leasing it ourselves?
That's a great question. The way we've done this is this is an open-ended lease where it's basically, it allows you to do more with less because you're not financing the entire portion of the vehicle. Because we know that we're only financing a portion of the vehicle, knowing that at X time frame you're going to sell it for more than you owe.
Would that not be the same with any lease arrangements we made with a local dealer, if you like?
No, these are very different. This is more of a commercial finance. It's not a net lease. Typically what you think of from a dealership lease. You're not restricted to a certain amount of kilometers. There's no wear and tear provisions. This is essentially your vehicle that you would lease to a residual, not paying off.
Okay, I don't want to tie up, so I have one last question. Next question while I got you. You talk about maintenance costs. We're still going to have to pay. It's not like the maintenance and the service and parts are free through your program. We still have to pay to have the vehicle serviced and repaired, correct?
Yep, and that's included here. So if you look at the top line item here, you got a midsize SUV. It's a 2021 Ford Escape Hybrid SE all-wheel drive. We factored in the amount of aftermarket, whether it's a decal that's going to be going on this vehicle. There's going to be 5 of them. In the orange column, there's 5 SUVs. We're writing these at 36 months and 20,000 kilometers. Your payment for this vehicle per vehicle is $712 for that particular unit. The full maintenance program, that includes all the maintenance for the vehicle. It includes the preventative maintenance, which includes oil changes, tire rotations, anything that's recommended by the manufacturer. And it also includes anything unscheduled. ACs, heaters, transmissions, engines, that's $45 a month. If you added those up, times that by 12 months in a year, your $9,000 to lease that vehicle plus the maintenance times 5. That's what gets you to the $45,000 per year.
We
Now,
have
with that-
two mechanics.
Sorry.
I say we have two mechanics.
Yep.
So who would be doing the maintenance?
The maintenance would be outsourced to a lot of the preferred vendors that are already set up on Enterprise's network within the local area.
So if we've had mechanics, we do have mechanics on staff who have been servicing our vehicles. What would happen to those positions in your scenario?
They would continue operating on the remaining pieces of light duty equipment in your fleet, as well as any heavy equipment as well, and construction equipment.
Okay, cards are up. Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess there's a lot of numbers here that make it look very attractive. Something that was hit on right there is our mechanics, which were hired, an additional mechanic specifically to do the work. I don't see how paying an outside agency to do the maintenance on the work is to township's advantage in any way, shape, or form. In addition, I do question your numbers, because at the end of 10 years on a lease package, you're getting rid of these vehicles every 40,000 K, according to what you're saying here, half ton, or at least the spend cycle of 40,000 K. But what I like to point out is the fact that right now we own these vehicles, and if we've got a good vehicle and we can move it from one position to another, for example, take the road patroller's truck, he probably puts maybe 200-300 kilometers on that a day when he's working. So that particular vehicle is a high mileager, but let's keep in mind that we're in a rural setting too. It's not a lot of stop and go traffic. So the wear and tear on that particular vehicle, I would suggest he would be fairly minimal. Now, at the end of that particular vehicle's life cycle, maybe 200,000 kilometers, which that could be a few years down the road. That vehicle can then be put over as it is now. Quite often it's redeployed to another area where they can make significant use of that vehicle in a different manner. For example, picking up trash at the local parks or watering the flowers here in Elmvale. So what I'm trying to point out is the life expectancy of the vehicles that the township currently has in fleet. We know from the staff, we know from our mechanics, when it's appropriate to get rid of them. As a matter of fact, at budget time, we bought a brand new truck, and it was based on recommendations from staff, given the amount of repairs that that truck needed, the amount of kilometers that that truck had on it. So we kind of have that information available to us in-house. But the other key point here too is the fact that we actually own all of our vehicles. So at the end of that 10-year window, if we were to stop dead right there, the following year, we're going to have to pay for every vehicle again for another lease year. Whereas at the end of that 10-year window, we're only going to have to pay for the new vehicles we buy that next year. So I think it's not really fair to provide an analogy that goes to a 10-year window and fails to take into consideration that after that 10-year window, we continue to own equity in vehicles that we're no longer paying for. The other thing I'd like to question real quick is when it comes to maintenance, yes, we have vehicles that require more maintenance, but I'd also like to point out that we don't owe any money on those vehicles, and we're not continuing to make payments on them. So I'm not a real bigger of this particular plan. And I also, I don't know about everybody else, but I did get the impression when you made your first presentation and that LAS, which is an organization created by the Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, I got the impression that they were the ones that put out the RFP, but that isn't in fact true. The RFP was put out by a different organization in the States, originally known as the Joint, what were they called? They're called Sourcewell now, but it was the Joint National kind of a procurement agency, much along the same lines as LAS, but they're based out of Minnesota. And in their RFP that Enterprise US was awarded, I guess. In that RFP, it includes both other government agencies outside of the USA, including Canada and international too. And that's how you came to be listed on the LAS website. So I kind of got the impression, I don't know about the rest of the members of council, but I thought that that RFP came from our own local organization, when in fact it was actually put out there by an American counterpart out of Minnesota. So there's a lot of stuff here that just kind of tends to rub me a little bit the wrong way. And maybe it was a misinterpretation on my part. That's what I got from the original presentation. So, and that was only back in 2018 when they put that RFP out there. It was shortly thereafter that they changed their name to this different name.
Okay, Chris, I'll give you a chance to respond to some of Councillor Cabral's points.
Thank you. Camille, are you able to help out there for a second?
Yeah, sure. So, Councillor, my name is Camille. I'm from our corporate office. I appreciate you having us on the call today. Couple things that you had mentioned there. First of all, the first question or point that you had made, that the buy and hold philosophy is what you have now. You have ownership of the vehicles. You can hold on to them for an extended period of time. And in particular, the utilization of the vehicles is fairly low, which is what allows you to hold on to those for anywhere from 10, 12, 15 years, depending on the vehicle. That same low utilization is actually what makes this program and these partnerships work, is because you're not utilizing these vehicles heavily, unlike a lot of commercial contractors do. The value of those vehicles is significantly increased. All right. So now what you've got is you have an inventory that essentially doesn't exist anywhere else. You have low mileage work truck type vehicles. Those are a bit of a unique commodity in the market, simply because work truck type vehicles are typically purchased by large contractors. They put a whole lot of kilometers on them, then they turn and burn them after a couple of years. Where we come in is we help resell these vehicles. And you had mentioned there was a question about, why can't we just do this ourselves? And the short answer to that is almost all of the things that we talk about here, you can, right? You can go and buy more vehicles. You can put more money in the capital budget, hold on to those vehicles for a shorter period of time, recognize some of these maintenance savings. The challenge that a lot of folks have is on the back end, is when they go to sell those vehicles. Because Enterprise does sell so many vehicles, we do have a lot of infrastructure in place. We don't typically go to auction. So we auction less than 15% of our vehicles, which means 85% of everything is getting hand sold by us. The big difference for you on that is the amount of equity that comes back out of these vehicles when they go up for resale. Most of our government clients, before they partner with us, they take their vehicles to auction and they sell them off when they're at the end of their life cycle, right? So maybe you're getting $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for those vehicles. In that auction process, they're obviously not a nonprofit, right? They're taking a portion of the proceeds, and typically that's somewhere between 10 and 12%. Whether the township pays it or the buyer pays it really doesn't matter. There's a portion of those proceeds that are coming out, and that's fine on a $3,000 vehicle. Now, when we start talking about cycling shorter, cycling sooner, and you're talking about cycling a $30,000 vehicle, suddenly that 10 to 12% cut becomes a tremendous amount of money. And that's where Enterprise really comes in and provides a benefit here, is because we will help you with when do we cycle these vehicles. You're going to have newer, more reliable, safer vehicles on the road. Typically, employee satisfaction goes up along with that, and you're going to be saving money in that process. You had mentioned some questions about Sourcewell. Yeah, the contract was, the initial RFP was done through Sourcewell. Maybe I didn't catch it. I wasn't sure what the issue with that necessarily was. Were you able to review the terms of the RFP?
Yeah, the issue is that when you folks made your first presentation, you purported it and only mentioned LAS, which is an Ontario organization under the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. But the fact is that Sourcewell, who used to be known as, you might know who they used to be known
NJPA.
As.
Yep.
Yes, National Joint, whatever it was, partnership thing. That was never mentioned at your original presentation. And I also think that when you were mentioning the number of people that you had available, you're talking North America wide. You're not talking about just local here in Canada. And I also noticed on there that you specified a dedicated team, which I find rather hard to believe that there would be 1 or 2 people dedicated solely to Springwater Township's fleet management needs and requirements. So there's a lot of things here that I have some real difficulty with. I think Township, given we only buy 2 or 3 vehicles a year, and we do source them out locally, which does provide local businesses an opportunity to bid on them too, and it allows us to specify exactly what we're looking for. And we can do our own in-house maintenance. As a matter of fact, we hired a manager of fleet, and part of his job description, create and manage the township's fleet maintenance program to minimize breakdowns, extend the life of equipment, and maintain staff. So I'm sorry, but I just don't see the need for a fleet management service that we're going to have to pay for when we're already getting that in-house with our own devices. So it's just an additional cost is all I see here. I don't see any cost savings.
Okay, let me pause, and I see Director Radigan's hand is up, so go ahead, Director Radigan.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to members of council. I just wanted to just kind of say that finance and Manager Haw, as well as Parks and Rec, we have gotten together and reviewed the finance side of Enterprise's proposal. And basically what we are seeing is that we do have fleet management as part of a role under Manager Haw. However, it is not a full-time role, and therefore we're not necessarily optimizing it or doing it to the best of our abilities. In most municipalities, it's quite common to purchase a vehicle and keep it for as long as we possibly can. It's just been common practice. And so this idea, it almost forces you to think outside the box and sell a vehicle and actually take the revenue of those vehicles and use it to reduce your expenses or use it to further lease additional vehicles. And I think that's one of the things that municipalities just don't have the resources in-house to do very well. And so when we look at the 10-year horizon in our 10-year long-term plan, we're only looking at replacing 29 of those 37 vehicles. And so since a quarter of our fleet is already 10 years old, after that 10-year horizon, we're not even looking at the full 37 vehicles. So that's where these numbers kind of, I guess, what staff would like to do is further review and come back with some hard details of what we are currently spending in terms of operating costs. We have reviewed it at a high level, but I think the approach or what staff is suggesting is allow us to come back and look at how we are currently actually operating and what those current expenditures are, and to kind of to give you an analysis of this is what Enterprise is saying and this is what we are currently doing. And that could be what is the missing piece, because I do understand sometimes it looks too good to be true, and I think that probably was my first thought as well. So it's one of the things that I feel like staff and Enterprise, they're the experts in the field. So it's one of those things that I would prefer to come back with a further detailed report outlining how we currently operate versus what Enterprise is proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Radigan. So what you're saying is the recommendation as it's set out in the agenda, we would amend to refer it back to staff as opposed to looking at a draft management agreement on May 5th. It would be referred back to staff further analysis to make the business case clearer to us. Is that what you're saying?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen. If council wishes to have further detailed analysis from a staffing perspective, that is absolutely what I would recommend.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And through you, my question was just specifically to the downtime on the vehicles and the approved dealerships or the approved repair shops that Enterprise is using. And I do apologize if this has already been asked and answered. Is there an opportunity to use local businesses as we are currently using?
So I'm not sure if Christopher or Camille wants to address that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of shops already set up with the relationships that we already have in place with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, whether it's in Barrie or you name it. There's enterprises everywhere, and because we have relationships with dealerships, with body shops, Midas's, Jiffy Lubes, a lot of our rental vehicles are already going into these shops to get repaired. We have 275 ASC certified master mechanics that are monitoring all the repair history for all of our vehicles. Because these local shops and dealerships are already set up for our vehicles, we've extended that to all of our clients in their local area. Whether it is a dealership from an acquisition standpoint, if we want to order a vehicle and get it landed at a dealership close to you to ensure that the money stays within the municipality, great, done. It's easily accommodated. From a maintenance standpoint, we definitely have shops set up. If there's a shop that's not currently set up today, we can reach out to them and say, hey, the Township of Springwater is looking to come on our maintenance program. Are we able to set up a program for what we have currently with other Midas's and Jiffy Lubes? 100%, we can definitely do that as well.
Okay, so we certainly, one second, Councillor Rich, before I get to you. So we certainly appreciate that you've delved in and you've used your software to come up with pretty good looking numbers initially using your software. But I like Director Radigan's idea that our finance department should take this and take our specific situation with our costs and our assets and our projected costs and our projected assets and do a business case analysis, basically. And I think that's what we're looking for as councillors, to see the cost benefit analysis before we can begin to potentially advance this further. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Getting back to the slide here, you had mentioned there about a mid-size SUV. The term was 36 months. Usually with a vehicle, like a pickup truck, it's usually 3 years or 150,000 kilometers on your powertrain. So that's, depending on the warranty, maybe that's something we need to look at as well too. But the average warranty, that's powertrain, front bumper to bumper. So when we purchase that, we're purchasing that warranty. Through you people, I'm getting the impression we're paying for it again. And why would we pay twice? So that's a concern to me. Secondly, having the way we've got it set up with our mechanics is that if there's a tail light out or there's something minor, then they can run it down, run it into the shop and get it looked at back out in the road. Time is everything. Keep in mind, we're in a snow belt and quite often we get hit with some pretty hard snowstorms. So keeping our stuff up and running all the time, not having to run to a Jiffy Lube or someplace the south end of Barrie, having our staff on staff and available, I think is worth a lot. We just bought a brand new hoist here last year, and we've upgraded as we move forward. So we've got the infrastructure in place. We've already got it, and I don't see us getting rid of that. Sure, they could go and do other things, but having that infrastructure in place and not paying twice for a fee that we've already paid for when we purchased that vehicle. So those are some concerns that I have.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Any comment, Christopher, on those points?
I think I just need to mention that anything that is warranty, we understand what is warranty, and that will 100% go to the dealer for any type of service done. when you look at this program, and I know a couple of counselors had mentioned that this seems expensive. This seems like it's going to cost us more money than it should. From the analysis that we've done, you've allotted $205,000 to buy 4 vehicles today, 4 out of your 37. That means there's still, a lot of vehicles that are going to incur higher maintenance costs. That, yeah, you may have an in-house shop today, but your operating bucket is going to increase. On our program, if you look at the Township of Springwater menu pricing plan here, we're able to get you 19 vehicles for $198,000. That's $7,000 less than what you're currently spending today, all costs considered. That's $198,000. If I scroll up, we're going to sell 19 vehicles for you. Basically, what we did is we know that if we were to start this partnership after 6, we know that it's going to take time for us to sell these units. So basically what we did is we forked out where your vehicles are at today from an odometer standpoint. It's got 246,000 kilometers, whatever that number is. And we projected out 1 year from now with even more mileage on it. What do we think this vehicle is going to be worth? And that's how we got that black book estimate. We took a percentage off of that, 85% of that dollar figure, to worst case scenario, what we're going to bring back to the municipality and township when we sell these 19 vehicles. Conservatively, that's $131,000. We think this is more like $165,000, $170,000 when we actually sell this vehicle, these 19, sorry. So to get 19 vehicles through us, all costs considered, it's $198,000 for 19, $7,000 less than what you're going to buy today from 4 vehicles. We're generating $131,000 in revenue back to the municipality. You do have some aftermarket costs. 76 of that 31 is going to get eaten up with some aluminum dump bodies and plows and salters. That leaves $55,000 in excess equity back to the township. Everything considered, it only costs you $142,000, everything all in, including maintenance, for 19 vehicles, as opposed to going out and buying 4 for $205,000. Now, what we do know with brand new vehicles is it's better on fuel and it's less maintenance. So not only is your capital cost the exact same, it's actually $7,000 less. Your operating expenses is going to drastically decrease because you don't have the 22 odd vehicles that you still need to replace with higher maintenance costs because you haven't replaced them yet. And then essentially what we do is for this vehicle here, the Ford Escape, if we know that this vehicle is going to be worth $20,000 after 3 years, we financed it down to 10. That means there's $10,000 worth of equity that the township owns because we're all we do is sell vehicles for ourselves. If you've got 5 of them at $10,000 a pop in equity, you now have $50,000 in equity just on these 5 SUVs to now fund future replacements. So we continually stay within your budget. It's not going to cost you a penny more than you ever would. Your capital budget's the exact same. Your operating expenses decrease, and you use the equity to fund future replacements to help drive down your overall cost moving forward. This is, yep.
Go ahead, finish, please.
I was just going to say this is all we do at Enterprise. I would like to say that the 1,600 different municipalities work with us because we're nice, friendly people, but unfortunately that's not the case. They work with us because we prove financially that this concept works, and that's why municipalities are coming on board, and we're confident that this is a program that's going to drastically reduce your overall cost. The numbers speak for itself.
So if we went forward with this, what would the rollout look like as far as retiring vehicles and acquiring new vehicles timeframe?
Yep, I've been working with your teams to put together a transitional plan over the next 5 years to look at what this would look like from a logistics standpoint, how our teams are going to be integrated with what you're currently doing today. Like Councilor Cabral mentioned, we do have 2 staff members that are going to be dedicated to the Township of Springwater to help alleviate some of the administrative burden. We help with aftermarket logistics, deliver these vehicles turnkey, ready to work. we're all hands on deck and having a seamless transition over these next 5 years.
So, but what would it look like as far as replacement of vehicles, time frame wise?
Yeah, very simple. This landscape is there's a lot going on with COVID. If we were to move forward with these 19 vehicles, we would put them on order. It's going to take about 6 months for these vehicles to land, especially with the shortages in microchips. Once these vehicles land, we're going to help coordinate aftermarket logistics, decals, deliver them turnkey, ready to work, pick up the 19 vehicles that we're going to replace, and use the infrastructure to sell them. The best part about that is when we sell these vehicles, we have an entire remarketing team. They don't know if it's the Township of Springwater's 19 trucks or Enterprise's commercial trucks. We're a very competitive company. We promote from within. They get matrixed against each other for how fast and for how much money they sell these vehicles for. We're getting top dollar for your truck. We don't even know it's yours or ours.
So the cost, the fee that you talked about in our first meeting that's included in this is included in the lease cost. Is that correct?
Everything is built in.
And
All
what's the effective rate of interest or the effective fee built into the lease?
We work in conjunction with the LAS RFP. It's 50 basis points above 3-year Canadian bond. So you're about a 3.9% interest.
So that's the effective rate of interest that we're paying on the lease?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Camille. One second here. I just got to pull it up. But yeah, you're 50 basis points above the 3 Canadian bond. I'd have to I'd have to pull it up, but the 3-year Canadian bond's about 0.49%. So you'd be under 4% in interest.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I quite like this idea. I think that a lot of our vehicles are old and dated. We have to replace them sooner rather than later. And looking forward, we're going to have to purchase more. So I would like to refer this back to staff for a provision of more information and a solid business case on why we should move forward. But right now, I'm a fan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to point out that when we talk about the 4 vehicles versus the 19, if you look at that over a 5-year period of time, at the end of the 5 years, once again, year 6, we own the vehicles. Year 6 on a lease one, we're going to just pay the same amount of money we paid the year before. So it is rolling. And I think maybe there's an opportunity to buy vehicles a little bit sooner, but I think we get rid of our vehicles on an as-need basis going forward. And the only other thing I'd like to comment on is when we use the figure of 1,600 municipalities, I think it would be fairly obvious that the vast majority of those would be in our neighbor down to the south that likely has about 1 million municipalities. So I just want to be careful that we don't get the impression that this is happening all over North America, just in Canada or north of the 49th. If it's a better deal for us, I'll support it. But I'm just very leery of leasing vehicles because we're always going to be paying for the leased vehicles. Whereas at least when we buy them outright, if it's a good vehicle and we hold on to it, I mean, we're ahead of the game there. And I think too that when it comes to looking at having these vehicles maintained under contract, I think we need to be a little bit more careful there because we actually hired a mechanic in order to do our maintenance in-house, our regular maintenance in-house, and not outsource it and pay some of the outsourcing garages, as well as also that there was a significant component attributed to the fleet manager's position specifically to this role as well. So those numbers should be taken into account even by our staff moving forward to see how these numbers equate.
Okay, so before I go to Director Radigan, have Christopher or Camille, Have you, in any situations, ever used for the maintenance, the township's mechanics?
Here in Ontario, the municipalities and townships that are on our program have opted to outsource their maintenance just because it's seamless. Most of the times, your mechanics, I'm assuming, are heavily paid and heavily skilled. And if we know that we're going to be getting out of vehicles every 2 or 3 years, and for the most part, it's an oil change or a tire rotation, how can we utilize their time more effectively to work on the heavy equipment that takes more time and energy to repair? And because we know exactly how much it's going to cost to have it built in and it's fixed and budgeted, was a huge win for our municipalities to outsource it and keep it local within the municipality for the repair services and the vendors on our program.
Okay, Director Radigan, did you have a point before I go to Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to members of council, I just wanted to address one of your earlier questions of how we would replace the 37 vehicles. And so I did want to outline that it was going to, the proposal does address replacing them in the 5-year period, with the 19 being replaced in 2021. And Chris is actually correct in terms of our allocated budget. The $205,000 has been set aside in our capital budget to replace 4 vehicles. So we would essentially be taking that budget to replace 19 vehicles, not necessarily owning them, but leasing them. And then in 2022, it would only be replacing 1 vehicle. 2023, replacing 6 vehicles. 2024, replacing 8 vehicles. And then 2025, replacing 3 vehicles. So that would add up to the 37 vehicles that you see in the proposal attached. I just wanted to clarify how the process would actually take place. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Ritchie, then Councillor Ma.
Thank you, through to that Chris fellow there. Let's just role play this. So we go ahead and we get some vehicles leased off you. It's brand new, and transmission goes out of it. It's under warranty. Now, usually with a lot of the dealerships we deal with around here, we've tried to make it so that, you know, there's a major problem like that, they give us another vehicle to get us through. What do you guys do?
With warranty work, that's between the dealership and the manufacturer, obviously. Nothing would change from that standpoint.
So basically, we're sitting down until it gets fixed. That's a concern in the middle of the winter time. We've got patrollers out patrolling the roads to tell the plow drivers when to get out. Timing is very critical for us. We got to keep our municipalities open and have them running. And like as I said, when we've purchased enough vehicles from enough dealerships around here, that's, if you want good service, and that's what it's all about. We try and strive to provide good service to our residents and taxpayers, and anybody wanting to do business with us, we pay a few more bucks. But at the end of the day, if we're down, they'll give us a loaner truck and get us up and running until the other truck's fixed. That's service, and that's very important to me. And if you guys can't meet that, I'm not interested. Thank you.
I do apologize. Maybe there was miscommunication there. Anything that's a warranty issue from a dealership, if they're going to be providing you a vehicle today, they're going to be providing you a vehicle tomorrow on our program. You're still going to get that vehicle, whether you're going through the dealership for warranty. Nothing would change, and you would still get that replacement vehicle. We actually can, because we are Enterprise Rent-A-Car, we can build in a car rental should anything happen. For the most part, transmissions don't necessarily go down under warranty, but if they do, we can have that built into the program for sure. But to your question, Councillor Ritchie, you would still be provided that vehicle as you are today under warranty.
I see CAO Schmidt come on. Did you want to make a comment, CAO Schmidt, before I go to Councillor Ma?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Lockhart's answered the question, but I think what it comes down to, and you know, it's I know it's a tough decision because I know in my own personal life, used to always buy vehicles and never leased until probably about 4 years ago. And I've been leasing since then. And I'll tell you, my maintenance costs are pretty much zero. I turn over vehicles every 2 to 3 years. You're driving a brand new vehicle, those late nights when you're leaving work or wherever the case may be, and you have a reliable vehicle, it's nice. I'll tell you, it's a convenience and it's a safety issue, as I mentioned, for our own staff. So, the costs, they are what they are. And we're likely going to come back to you with a savings to the township. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about this. But again, it's not just the financial component, it's the health and safety of our employees and making sure that they're in pieces of equipment that are reliable. So again, I understand sometimes it is a personal choice, and it's a tough decision when it comes to purchase versus lease. But if you've done it, then you'll see what the benefits are from a lease perspective. Does it fit everybody's needs? Absolutely not. But again, it's a personal choice when it comes to that. But again, the townships here with staff are here. We're trying to present a program that we feel is efficient and going to provide some savings to the township, but also, again, protect our staff on a go-forward basis. But again, I think if council wants staff to come back with a report with the comparison of our financials to provide a better business case, then we're happy to do so. I think it is a good program. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here in front of you. I had a discussion with the deputy director of public works in Clearview today. They've gone on the program. They just recently gone on the program. So of course, they haven't been 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years on the program, but so far everything looks good. They've ordered their vehicles. They're waiting on their vehicles. And as Chris mentioned, there's a 3 to 6 month wait right now, hopefully sooner, but the program they've signed on for. Meaford, I haven't had the opportunity to speak with Meaford, but they've signed on not too long ago as well on the program. Again, staff wouldn't be bringing you a program if we didn't think that it was going to be the right decision for the township. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Ma, and then Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I also support this, and I was going to say exactly what CEO Schmidt said. He took the words out of my mouth. It's not always about the money, it's about the health and safety. And I think whether a corporation owns their vehicles or leases their vehicles, and then I think at the end of the day, I don't think it matters. I think leasing might be the better opportunity. And my question to Mr. Lockhart is the selling of it, the return value, on this chart, is it an average of what you sell it for? Do you ever come under the selling price or over?
Great question.
The average?
So in Ontario alone, each year we sell about 75,000 commercial work trucks and vans, and we're indexed against the Canadian Black Book. So essentially what we do is when we're going to forecast what we're going to be able to sell the Township of Springwater's vehicles for, we always be as conservative, ultra conservative as possible. We take the rough condition, because most of our vehicles and the folks that we work with hold on to a long time. And on the private side, they're contractors, right? They back into a pole or two and they don't dust their feet off. These vehicles have seen better days, I'll tell you that. So we take rough condition and we take a percentage off, which is where you can see on my slide here. I took 85% off of that to know worst case what we're going to sell these vehicles for. Because all we do is sell vehicles, and like Camille mentioned earlier, we have an entire team tasked to sell vehicles, and we hand sell the majority of our time. We're actually beating the Canadian Black Book by about 11-12% on average, better than wholesale and better than auction, because we have an entire team that does that for our own fleets. And we project out worst case scenario, what we know we're going to sell these vehicles for, especially for the customer owned units. But anything that's 3 years and 60,000 kilometers, we know exactly what we're going to be getting for these vehicles, because that's our bread and butter, and that's what we do day in and day out, and we're consistently beating those results.
Okay, I've got Clerk Ainsworth working on the possible amendment wording, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Marilyn. my question or my comment would just be that the staff report, if it does come back or when it does come back, if there could be a component of it as to how we can incorporate the mechanics that we have today or the local shops. And when I say local, I too am not speaking to South End Barrie. I mean actual local businesses that we have a relationship with and we trust. I think that goes a long way. And also speaking to the turnover, if we need a vehicle serviced and back in the fleet the next morning, that happens because of the relationship, the decade-long relationship that we have with our local businesses. So if there's an opportunity for Mr. Lockhart to look into negotiating or if it's possible to have that business or that proprietor still service spring water, that would be important or an added bonus to this presentation this evening.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just curious, if we were to move forward with this program, is there an opportunity, because the vehicles are being recycled every 3 years or so, that staff would have an opportunity to be on the list to purchase those vehicles when they come up, maybe get first opportunity, or do they have to go back to enterprise?
Christopher?
At the end of the day, if you want to buy out the vehicle for what the book balance owing is at the end, absolutely, you can buy this vehicle out at the termination value, and then that's your vehicle.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just on that point, I through you to CAO Schmidt. My understanding is that township assets wouldn't be able to be made available to staff when they're disposed of. So could you explain how that would work in this scenario? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm interested in us making sure we make a good, viable decision for the residents. But that particular question does kind of make me wonder what would happen and what would be the case.
I think it'd be deemed fair market value, but CEO Schmidt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral's comments. So we do have a disposal policy right now, and essentially, if it gets out to the market, if you will, then it's available to anybody. So to me, it wouldn't just be available to staff. I'll be honest with you, when it comes to corporate assets, staff shouldn't have any bigger benefit, if you will, than a resident. So in my mind, it should go out to the open market. And if a staff member bids or outbids somebody, then fair game. But I don't think it should be an opportunity where staff should be provided an incentive, if you will. To me, I don't agree with that.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth, can you tell us possible wording for an amendment based on the discussion?
Thank you. Based on the discussion, I would recommend a referral to staff with the following motion, pending any changes that would be required. That the motion now before council be referred to staff to provide further detailed analysis of the township's current fleet and associated costing in comparison to the enterprise fleet management proposal.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Moore, that bylaw 2021-044 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at a special meeting held on April 26, 2021, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. And I thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation and look forward to your input on the further analysis that's going to be done on this. And we certainly have interest, and we just want to make sure it's been sliced and diced and analyzed in a way that is satisfactory to all of us. So Thank you again.
Thank you,
Can I have
everyone.
a mover and seconder to adjourn this meeting, please? Councillor Ma and Councillor Ritchie, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 6:09 PM to meet again in regular meeting, May 5th, 2021 at 6:30 PM. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again.
We use the same link to get back on for 6:30.
Yes, I was just going to mention that, council and staff, the same link for this meeting in about 20 minutes.
Thank you.
Ahead of my time. Jeez. Thank you.